Hi y'all, I'm getting set down, I promise. I'm having trouble with video, with editing, as you've noticed in my other previous ones. Thank you so much for tuning back in, even after all my errors. Maybe you're just tuning in to see what I do to goof up this time, I don't know. But I'm really glad you're back. This is the 5th episode or segment or whatever you want to call it of Moving Forward. And so I just want to catch you guys up. I think today's will be short. I hope I don't go too long. I know the last couple have been a little longer than I anticipated. So I'm going to try and keep it short for you. I was going to try and find where I left off for you last time. Oh yeah, change is coming and find your purpose. And that's what Pastor Rick had said at that last service I had been at. Well, in that first week of January, I went back to my sister's because she was going to be there since they all had COVID in Dallas. And so one night I was going to get dinner with my niece, and I was telling her my story. Like, she hadn't heard the whole thing. Everything you guys have heard up until now, she just hadn't heard that. And so I was telling her all the things, and I was so excited. And she was just, blown away by everything, because God has just been so amazing. And believe me, there's been a lot of times in my life I've prayed and not gotten an answer, super fast. So the fact that I did and had been consistently through this process is, it's just mind blowing. And so I was telling her, and she's driving, but she stopped the car and she just looked at me and she said, "Aunt Jennifer, I'm just so proud of you." And I told her, you would do the same thing if God was talking to you, because, when it's so crystal clear, of course you're going to obey. And so she said she listens to T.D. Jakes. And first of all, let me apologize, Bishop Jakes. I had never heard of T.D. Jakes. I couldn't even remember his name, you guys. I was calling him Jake something. I couldn't remember. Anyway, we got home with the food, and she asked her stepdad, she said, "Rod, who do you listen to? You listen to a lot of podcasts." And he said, "Well, mostly T.D. Jakes." So I said, "Well, I don't know who this person is." So I called Raquel and I asked her. I messed up his name. I could not remember the man's name. And I said, "Have you ever heard of this person?" I don't even know how I messed up his name, but I would not say it correctly. And she said, "You mean T.D. Jakes? Yeah, he's a really famous pastor." And I was like, "Well, okay. So everybody's heard of him but me, apparently." So I thought, I'm going to have to look him up, right? Well, the next day, after that conversation, I had emailed OCJ Ministries and told Tammy that I was in town again, and she had told me to come out on Friday. She would be there all day Friday and have time to talk to me. So I drove out on Friday, and I got to meet all the staff there. That was lovely. Got to meet her son, and so she introduced me to everybody and kind of told me a little bit about what everybody does and stuff. And that was all good. Again, I didn't feel, an electric connection that something was supposed to happen there. I'm really wasn't sure at that point, because it just didn't feel, I don't know, there just wasn't a bonding that happened there like I expected. And so I went ahead and left when it was time to go. I went ahead and left, and I decided, you know what, I really want to go to Pilgrim Rest. Really, really, really want to go to Pilgrim Rest. So I looked that up in my maps, and I drove there. Well, I thought I was driving there. My little Siri girl in my iPhone did not take me to the right address. I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I called the church and I said, "It says I'm here, but it doesn't look like I'm here." And I was telling her what was around and stuff, and she said, "Are you in the streets or the avenues?" And I don't know the difference. I said, "I'm wherever the phone took me. I don't know." I looked up Pilgrim Rest and put it in my phone. So she said, "You need to go all the way to Central, and once you cross that, then you'll be in the streets where you need to be." And so I did. She stayed on the phone with me, you guys. I was downtown, but I wasn't in a very great area, I don't think. There were people just meandering in traffic. We're talking, there was a lot of traffic. And they just were just meandering around in the street. I don't know what they were doing, but did not appear to be completely in their right mind. And so I thought, well, I probably need to go somewhere else. And so I got down the road and crossed Central and found the church, and I had no idea it was such a large church. It took up a whole city block, and there were all sorts of buildings all around. I didn't know where to go. But when I pulled in the parking lot, you guys, I'm not kidding you, I pulled in the parking lot and I was so excited to be there. I was so excited to be there. I can't even tell you how excited I was to be there, because I felt like I was home. Like I was at church. I was at my church. I was so incredibly excited. And so I'm going up and I'm pulling on doors again, like I did at OCJ. I'm just pulling on doors randomly because I don't know where I'm supposed to be. And I finally found a door that opened, and I found lovely Deborah. She is the one that was on the phone with me and made sure I got to a safe place and found them. And so I wanted real bad, Deborah, if you're ever watching this, I hope you are. She was so lovely. I wanted real bad to hug her neck, but there was a plexiglass up and she had a mask on, and I knew that, she probably wouldn't appreciate it if I came around and hugged her neck. So I just said, is there somebody here that I could talk with? And she's very professional and very kind. And she said, well, we usually require an appointment. Who would you like to speak with? And I said, I don't care. Anybody, whoever will come down and talk to me. And she said, well, let me call upstairs and see if there's anybody that can come down. So she made a phone call, and she's talking real quiet. There's a crazy lady out here that wants to talk to somebody. So anyway, she hung up and she said, Elder Penn will be down to speak with you in a few minutes. Go ahead and have a seat. Well, I did not want to have a seat because I was so excited to be there. I just did not want to sit down. But I kind of meandered around myself and waited, and she came down. She was so nice. And she took me not into her office, but there was a little office off behind Deborah's office. And she said, we'll just go in here. Well, we walked in there, and there was a credenza, and there's nothing on this credenza except like a plate holder with a book facing outward. This book by T.D. Jakes. And I said, I have to have that book. And she said I could have that book because they have a bookstore and I could go buy it, and I did. And you guys, I have to stop right here and just tell you, this book is called When Women Pray. And he uses women of the Bible. So there's Hannah, Mary, Sarah, the woman with the issue of blood, Naomi, the Samaritan woman, Esther, Rhoda, the Shunammite woman, and Anna. And he has a different chapter for each of those. And each one is a different aspect of prayer. And the way he tells the story, it is so good. And it's such an easy read, you guys. It's really, really good, but really easy read. So if you want to go get this book, I strongly recommend it. I have marked it all up. I wish I could get T.D. Jakes to autograph it for me. But I have marked it all up and underlined things because it's really good. So that's my commercial for that. But anyway, once I got off of that, because I was just so surprised that here I just learned who T.D. Jakes was, and then here's his book. And so I spoke with Elder Penn, and I told her my story kind of in a nutshell because I didn't want to keep her there all day. But she also shared with me some of her story, which was very similar in parts to my story. So that was really cool. And she gave me some really sage advice about when I come and getting involved in ministry and stuff. So I really, it meant the world to me because I wouldn't have done what she said. I would have probably jumped right into some things. And she told me to just come to church. Don't get involved in anything yet. Just come to church and wait to hear what God calls you to, because it might be something completely different than what you think it's going to be. And she said she was doing something completely different than she thought she would be doing, and she absolutely loves it. But she said your tendency, if you jump right in, is to go into the things you're familiar with, the things that you've been called to before. But she said, I really would like you to just come. Chill, Jennifer. She didn't say that, but that's, I'm excited and I want to jump right in. And so it was really good advice to tell me to just come to church and just wait and hear what God's saying to you before you get involved in stuff. So I am taking that advice, Elder Penn. Thank you for that. So then I was then excited Sunday because I could come back to church, right? I could actually hear Dr. Mackey live and in person. And I was so excited. And I came to church on Sunday, and a big screen came down, and there was Dr. Mackey and his son in quarantine with COVID. And praise God, they weren't sick. They had COVID, but they weren't symptomatic. So that was good. But he wasn't going to be there to preach. But then they said, so instead, Elder Elaine Penn is going to preach. So then I was excited again. So she did such a fabulous job. And I'm sure it's recorded on the Pilgrim Rest page, and that's linked in my banner if you guys want to go to it. But it was an incredible move of God and move of the Holy Spirit in that church service. And it was just very real, very applicable, very personal. And so many people were moved to go forward for prayer. So many people. They don't stop till the Holy Spirit's done, which I really, really appreciate. So they don't say, it's been an hour, lunchtime, final song, let's go. They just keep going. It's like, well, the Holy Spirit's not done yet, so we're not done. And I just love that. And it went on and on and on and on. But so what? Like, it was fabulous because the Holy Spirit just kept moving and people just kept coming. And it was just amazing. And I didn't get home. Granted, I do live an hour from the church where I'm staying with my sister in the Verbo. We were an hour from the church, but I didn't get home till 2:00. Church was at 10:30 or something. So we were there a while, but it was so fabulous. And she did such a marvelous job. And I was really glad I was there. I left my sister's, I think the following weekend, the 14th, 15th, something like that. I didn't take real good notes. I really regret that now, but I was there visiting with her and I didn't take real good notes during that, I think 10 or 11 days that I was there with her. So, but I did leave that following weekend. Well, I was there to see Elder Penn on the 9th, and I really wanted to go to church again the next weekend because I was there all week. But I also knew I had to be responsible, and I really needed to be at work on Monday. I shouldn't be driving because it's a 2-day drive back to Kansas. So I knew I had to leave on Saturday and drive Saturday and Sunday. So I did the responsible thing and went back so that I could work. So, but then the following Monday, I was in high gear for getting things in order. Like, I wanted to get my bank accounts in order. I wanted to get my safety deposit box figured out. I had moved from one bank to another bank in town, and stuff was kind of still in both places. And I really wanted to just get it all moved where it was going to be so that I could finalize that and button things up in Kansas. And I didn't know when I was supposed to go, to Arizona, but I knew that I needed to start preparing. And so I did that, and then that Monday, I started watching sermons. I think I watched a sermon every single day that week. And the first one I watched was T.D. Jakes because I was so excited. And it was called The Unexpected. And I think he has several that have the word unexpected in it. So if you're looking for it, it was recorded on January 15th of 22. I started to say 19, you guys. Oh, I'm so old. I did live in the 1900s. But it was January 15th of 2022. And he preached on Acts 3, verses 1 through 10. And he said, God is going to do the unexpected. And he said, it won't be normal. It won't be routine. It will be more than you could ask or imagine or even think. And he said, he's getting ready to blow your mind. And that was funny to me because that's something that I had kept saying to people this is just blowing my mind. But he said, and I have to look at my notes for this because it was really good, but he said, such a move of God, you're going to have such a move of God that you have to change your plans to accommodate it. And that really struck me, you guys, because I was going to have to change my plans, like all of my plans, like my entire life had to be changed to accommodate whatever plan this is that God has. And so that just really blew my mind. What can I say? It's all the words I have. But he said, you have to go through a disruptive experience. It has to happen. And that he's going to put people in situations and in my path and order my steps. And he's so done that. And so he said, at the end, he said, I don't know who I'm talking to, but he said, there's an online viewer, and I'm supposed to tell you this. So I'm not quoting him, you guys. This is paraphrased, but something like this. And he said, this is your year to move. This is your year to take over new territory and show up at unexpected places. And I just was like, I know there's probably, you know, a million other people that feel like they're talking to him, but boy, I sure felt like he was talking directly to me, you guys. And he said he's going to do extraordinary things and God's going to make it happen. You have to be obedient in order to break through. And then he said something really, really strange. And I actually hit the, you know, there's the little arrow with the 10, backspace 10. It's not backspace, but whatever you call it. You rewind 10 seconds and listen to it again. And I did that like 5 times, you guys, because honestly, I thought I was hearing him wrong. I thought he was saying some other word and I just wasn't hearing him correctly because, first of all, it didn't seem like it fit in with what he was preaching. It just seemed like it was this sentence that was out here dangling that didn't connect in any way to what he was saying. And so it didn't make sense to me, but also it made so much sense to me that I thought I heard him wrong. And the reason is, he said, your sister will be shattered. And I have a sister in Connecticut and a sister in Washington and a sister in Texas and a sister in Kansas. And the sister in Kansas and I are pretty close. And she had been a bit shattered because I had moved and I was working and I was going through all this. And so I hadn't been talking to her near as much as I usually did. And I was really absorbed into this in the evenings. I was just in the Word and I wasn't talking to her. And so then when she did find out that I was going to be moving, I was hinting at it on social media, but I didn't ever come right out and say. She was shattered, and you know, it was sad for her that I was going to leave. And it was sad for me too, but I also had this exciting thing going on, you know, so when I look back, yeah, it's really sad, but when I looked forward, it was so exciting. And so when he just said, though, your sister will be shattered, I just was like, he seriously like just said that. Like, I don't know. It was again another confirmation to me that God was talking to me. So then he said, you have to move into a complete different dimension. A kingdom dimension will change your life. And I want you guys to hang on to that for later because that comes back into play later. But I circled it in my notes. It's like all circled because move into a completely different dimension. A kingdom dimension will change your life. And he said, don't go back to the familiar because that's a lie. Don't stay there. This is the Lord's doing. And the part where he said that's a lie, that also comes back many times in many different services by many different pastors. So yeah, it was a big thing. And I listened. I'm not gonna bore you guys with all the details. I find it really fascinating and exciting, but I know that you guys probably don't. So I'll skip forward a few sermons. I listened to Francis Chan, Moving Forward with Excitement and Enthusiasm, and I watched it on the 19th of January in 22, but he actually recorded it May 3rd of 13, if you're looking for it. But he preached on Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 5 through 8, which, if you remember, is what I talked about in the first segment here. And one of the other sermons that I listened to this week, Antoinette Staples, also used those verses. And so it was just all coming around for me. But he was talking about who made your mouth. You know, God made it, and he's the one that can help you use it. And he said, if God's empowered you, you can't fail. And he said, look, guys, don't believe the lies. It just kept coming back. And he said, when the gift is alive, it's a rush, which is so true because I'm so excited. But he said, Satan will tell you lies to make you doubt. And he has. Believe me, he has. But he said, get yourself ready and don't be terrified. Just, you got to go do what the Lord's told you to do. So that was really encouraging and went right along with, and you guys, I don't know why I watched that one. Like, I got on YouTube to watch something, and I like Francis Chan. And that one came up, and I just felt like that's what I was supposed to watch. So I did, and it was, man, spot on. Because, you know, God. So there's that. But he did say everyone's going to be against you, but God will be with you. And he was talking about Jeremiah, who did go and he was obedient, but he said it took 30 years for him to have a convert. Could you imagine going and doing what God told you to do, what you know God told you to do, and it's 30 years before anybody comes to Christ? I would have given up, I think, you guys. I can't imagine. And I know Noah built the ark, and it took him a really long time too, and years and years and years. And people were making fun of him the whole time, and he just kept going. And I feel like those are the heroes of the Bible, because to just keep going and not believe the lies. I mean, they're encouraging themselves. Nobody's believing them. And T.D. Jakes has a sermon on that too, Encourage Yourself. It's a good one. But that's what they had to do. They had to encourage themselves. Nobody was listening to them. I can't imagine. I don't think, you guys have been really, really super supportive of me. And I know that right now, or in the early stages of this, most of the people watching are friends and family and coworkers and, people that actually personally know me. But that support is really, really encouraging. And people will text message me or private message me on Instant Messenger or something. And they tell me they're praying for me. Susan messaged me from an old church I used to go to and said, she's going to be my prayer warrior. And my son told me he was fasting and praying for me. And just so much that you guys have been so encouraging to me. I can't imagine what these guys were going through. 30 years of preaching the good news and nobody coming to Christ is just amazing. But then on the 20th of January, I listened to Antoinette Staples again. I did really like her. And she said, you're being prepared. And she talked about whenever the enemy, whatever the enemy means for evil, God means for good. And she talked a little bit about Abraham when God told Abraham to move. And that's the story that he had given me. And so that really resonated with me. But she also talked about crazy faith, which has come up in several of the sermons, having crazy faith. So she said, no matter what anybody thinks, do what God tells you to do. And something that she did say that I think might be beneficial for you guys as well, so I want to repeat it, was she said there's 5 things that happen when God's talking to you. And I thought this was really good. So she said, you're going to be uncomfortable, first of all, because you're going to hear him talking to you, and whatever it is he's saying is not going to sit well with you. I'm a prime example of that. But I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable at church for 10 years in 2 different churches. I was not comfortable. And then she said, you're going to have natural breaks in relationships, which I did. I had natural breaks in relationships at the churches with these people who had been, my family and my dear loved family. And somehow when we changed churches, I don't really know what happened. There was just natural breaks in those relationships. And then she said, there's going to be a supernatural open or closed door. And I really felt like OCJ Ministries was that supernatural. I prayed, give me a ministry, and he did, right then. And then she said, you're going to have a clear word. There's going to be a word that clearly resonates with you. And I had the word move, that, and then it changed to forward, but that word move was right there in my face all the time. And then she said, you're going to have a community to help. And man, have I had that. All of you guys, but also, my sister and her husband, and my niece and her husband, and Pilgrim Rest, and the new friends I'm making there. And so I just had all this support and people that were behind me. And so I hit all 5 of them, and I thought that was really good. So those are some things that you can think about if God is speaking to you. Is he making you uncomfortable somewhere? Are there natural breaks in relationships? Is there a supernatural door that has opened or closed? Have you had a clear word from him? And do you have a community to help? I think that's really good to pay attention to. And you might not have all of them. That doesn't mean it's not God. Certainly, like I said in the earlier segment, that God talks to us all in different ways. But I think that's a real good template to use if you're not sure if God's talking to you, if you maybe haven't heard him talk to you before and you're wondering how you hear that. You know, it's not an audible voice. I know some people have heard him audibly, like Saul, who was then Paul. But most of us don't. So you just have to be open to hearing him, and you need to be in his word to hear him. So at any rate, I'm just got a little tiny bit more that I wanted to go over with you. Let me find the right page. One sermon I listened to said, when God calls you, you got to go. You can't revoke it. If God called you to it, you cannot revoke it. And that was really good. But, oh, this is the one. So I went to online. I was watching Pilgrim Rest, and it was Dr. Marcus Crosby, and they were doing their Fresh Rain. I don't know what you call it. It was a service. Anyway, it was called A Promised Future. And he said, God has me on his mind, which is like what Jeremiah said in that verse that we read earlier. But he said, expect a blessing and look for it. Activate the plans of God. And I thought that was really good. Activate the plans of God and do something with the time that you've been given. So he said, God has brought you here on purpose. God has got plans for you. And in my mind, I thought, God has brought me here on purpose, and I need to get there. Like physically, I need to get there. That's all that was speaking in my heart, was like, I need to get to Pilgrim Rest. I needed to get there. So when I got back, so I'm now back from Arizona, right, on that last trip, and I've spent this whole week in sermons every night, and I go to church, back to my church at New Life in Gardner. And so you remember when this whole thing started, the sermon series was called Move. And I get back from this whole journey at this point, and do you know what the new sermon series was called? Say Goodbye. I can't make this stuff up, you guys. It was incredible. It was Say Goodbye. And there's so many good things in that. Just go to the New Life link in my banner page and find the Say Goodbye series. There are so many, and we'll pick it up there next time. But I did. I decided I was going to have to say goodbye. So we will talk about that next time. You guys, I am so, so thankful and so blessed that you are watching this. I know you've muddled through all my unedited uploads because I've tried and it won't save them, and I don't know why it won't save my changes, but I will learn and they will get better, so please hang with me. The main thing is to watch the story and share it with people, because God has a word to speak to somebody. There's somebody watching right now, or somebody that needs to watch, that's on your mind, that you know you need to share this with, that really needs encouragement from something that's being shared here. So I hope and I pray that you'll share it, pray about it, and I just thank you for your encouragement and your support of me from the bottom of my heart. Bye-bye.